We are recording this session so that we can share it out afterwards. If you have any concerns, please let me know. Welcome, everybody. Just to give you a time check, we're going to wait till about 1:35 for people to join us and participate. So if you need to take a water break, this is the perfect time. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I am really excited about the workshop today. It's the third one in our series. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Elizabeth Maggio. I'm the Senior Director of SparkPoint here at United Way Bay Area. Um, Thank you for, just to let people know who came in later, we are recording the session so that it can be available to people who were not able to make it today. This is the third workshop in our series for disaster preparedness for service providers. But whether you're attending this workshop for yourself or for your clients or for your organization or your household, I think that you'll be able to get a lot of information today to help you think about how to prepare before a disaster, what you can do during a disaster, and what is available to you after disaster from a financial perspective. You know, the other speakers and I were talking about how this is not really a workshop that's often done. We have a lot of workshops about how to prepare yourself and keep yourself safe, but not a lot about how to keep your assets and your property safe. So I'm really excited about sharing this information, and I'm glad that you could join us. I want to introduce the other speakers today. Annie Barbour is with United Policyholders. She's a program liaison with them, and she supports disaster survivors through outreach, education, and recovery programs. She is a survivor of the 2017 Tubbs fire, and so she brings lived experience and deep community engagement to her work. And I believe this was the inspiration for you starting to work with the work, is your experiences in going through that fire.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We started a nonprofit, very grassroots, Coffee Strong to help our neighbors in Coffee Park come back. And from there, jumped onto this. So it worked out very well.
Well, wonderful. I'm sorry that was the start, but I'm glad that you're in this place to be able to help us today. United Policyholders may not be an organization you know about, but it's probably someone that you should know about. They're a nonprofit. They were formed in 1991, and they are a trusted resource and advocate for insurance consumers across all 50 states. The organization was created in response to wildfires in Northern California, and since then has worked to empower individuals with tools, education, and support for navigating claims and improving disaster recovery. They are not supported by the insurance industry. Our other speaker is Yvonne Ortega. Yvonne is a financial wellness partner from Patelco Credit Union. She brings over 25 years of experience in the credit union industry. And in her role, she leads initiatives that expand access to financial well-being services through strong community partnerships. She collaborates with real businesses and nonprofit organizations like United Way Bay Area and SparkPoint in order to deliver impactful financial education and to support employees and clients. She is passionate about empowering individuals and communities, and she provides personalized financial coaching, as well as educational resources and strategic guidance to help members achieve lasting financial well-being. Patelco Credit Union has been around for nearly 90 years. It's a full-service, not-for-profit financial cooperative dedicated to helping its members and communities prosper. With nearly $10 billion in assets and over 500,000 members nationwide. Patelco's mission is to build financial health and well-being by fueling hope and creating opportunities for financial resiliency. I am Elizabeth Maggio. I'm with United Way Bay Area, and as you may know, United Way SparkPoint is an initiative of the United Way Bay Area, and we help individuals and families achieve long-term financial stability through personalized coaching and access to essential services. Clients receive support in areas like budgeting, credit, career development, income growth, all tailored to the goals that they themselves want to follow. SparkPoint centers are located throughout the Bay Area. So with all that, I want to ask a few things of you. Please introduce yourself in the chat by entering your name and your organization and the counties that you serve, because sometimes that helps us to see if there's a focus that should go one way or another. And if you have questions, the speakers request that you ask them when they come up, as opposed to holding off till the end. We just feel that it connects better with the material, and it's probably things that people are thinking about as they are going through this. So it will help us to address questions better. All right. And you can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand. Either way works for me. We're going to begin today with Annie's presentation.
Thank you. I am going to see if I can make this a very easy share. I'm getting better and better at this, thank God. But I have a few too many things open here. Okay, let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. Okay. Okay, I think we're up and running here, folks. So everything Elizabeth said was correct. I think the biggest thing I'd like to open with is that insurance is the #1 resource to people getting back home. And 2/3 are underinsured. And so today we're going to go through the real basics of what's in your policy, how do you compute it out, what are the best practices, and we're going to cover renters and homeowners. So pretty much Elizabeth covered this. We're not for profit or for sale. We've been helping disaster survivors since the Oakland Hill fires in 1991. We're funded by donations and grants only. We never take money from insurance companies, and we're trusted and respected nationwide. We are made up of a professional staff, government and nonprofit partners, and we rely very heavily on volunteers. And I say that because, people think we're much bigger than we are. In my fire in 2017, there was only 5 employees. And that was before Zoom. Now that we have 14 employees, half of them are part-time. And a lot of it, I can sit on a meeting in Maui and then I can hop to a meeting in LA and et cetera, et cetera. So we rely on our volunteers to do some of our preparedness events, but in the big picture, they are chomping at the bit when a new disaster happens to come out and guide people from the get-go. And we're the only resource that actually connects with people where they meet. We're not asking name, address, and phone number. We're saying, been there. We want to help you not make a mistake at this point and guide you. So we use a lot of consumer-oriented professionals who volunteer for us to get answers for our survivors or for our people that are clients who are doing preparedness. We have 3 programs. Roadmap to Recovery, where we, like LA, we go in and we teach you. We probably have 8 or 10 webinars already on everything from how to read and understand your policy to underinsurance, contents. We cover pretty much every challenge. Roadmap to Preparedness, which is what we're doing here, and we're funded very graciously by Listos. And Advocacy and Action, which Amy Bach, who is our founder, she is flying from one part of the US to the next, trying to make sure that we have a voice for the consumer. This workshop is intended to be general guidance only, not legal advice. We do not endorse or warrant any of the sponsors listed at uphelp.org or speakers. If you have a specific legal question, we recommend you consult an experienced attorney. And you guys know all of that is simply the jargon that we have to do before we do this presentation. So many renters, we're going to start with the renter's insurance. Many renters have no clue as to what will happen if they lose their contents, if where their living goes down. They don't understand that a landlord is not going to cover their contents. And so the educational part in all of this is really important. So we just clarify, that the policy has to be in their name. Legally, a landlord cannot take out a policy for a renter. He can reduce their rent in that component of whatever the cost is for that renter's policy, but it can't be taken out in their name. The key to the insurance is pretty basic. Renter's insurance, it's going to have the name of the insured, the location of the property, the effective date, major coverages, policy forms and endorsements, and deductibles. And this is going to be true in both homeowners and renters. Renters is a little bit more limited, obviously, because they're covering less. This is what a renter's policy looks like. And as you can see, all of those things that we just talked about are on there. And, it's including personal property, loss of use, which means to be out of the home, personal liability, and medical payments to others. And it shows the deductible. And the reason this is important is because this page really tells everything. It's not quite the same as your homeowner's insurance. Um, our challenge is educating people that there is more to these policies than just personal property. I did a presentation for a Sonoma State college class, and there was about 50 students. It was quite interesting because I asked at the end how many of them had renter's insurance, and about 2/3 raised their hands. And then I asked them what it covered, and one guy, it was crickets. And then one guy said, my stolen bike. So even as their parents have captured renter's insurance for them, they do not know what it covers. So therefore, they do not know when they can file a claim. And that's really important. That educational piece is huge. This is just another example of a renter's insurance policy. The difference here is that under C, the yellow arrow, loss of use, it's actual loss sustained, which means that there is no limit. In this policy, there probably is a time frame, but for them to be out of their house, it's kind of open for whatever time frame is there. It's not a dollar figure. So there's a lot of limits on insurance policies that people need to be aware of. These are some of the examples. So money is usually only covered for a little bit. Securities, business property, you would need to add a business policy. Trailers, computers, electronic equipment, jewelry and firearms, generally, they have a disclaimer that during a fire, if you have it stolen, that it's not covered, but a fire, they will cover it. So the devil's in the details. So what does it cover? It covers their belongings, what they would take if they moved. You need to find your contents limits in your deck page. You can ask for a cash advance for your loss of use and for your contents. In the big picture, you need to document what you have, whether you're a homeowner or a renter. That video of everything you have. We don't live in model homes. You're going to have to pick up boxes and open things and capture them. Now, there is an amazing app here that came from LA. It's called bevelmade.com. Instead of just videotaping, you can actually take pictures of your house. You can upload it. AI will capture what it sees in the picture and price it. This is a great way to capture your contents. It is AI, which means it's not perfect. You will have to fine tune it, but it's a pretty amazing new development. What did I do here? Advance the screen. Oops. So again, this is just a actual loss sustained. I think that was out of touch. So your loss of use. Extra expenses due to losing use of your rental. So if you go find a rental that's $300 more a month and it's temporary, they will cover the excess cost. All of that varies by company. It's all in the policies. But you want to check your deck page for the limits of money, time, actual loss sustained. And for if you're out of your home, if you're evacuated and you're out of your home, they will pay for excess food costs because you can't cook at home. Excess rent. If your PG&E is, $150 more or $150 less, that will get added or subtracted. You also can capture 0.70 cents per mile as you're farther away from your work, your school, where your kids go, your gym. That can all be captured under that, and it'll all be indicative of your policy. The best practices for renter's insurance is to add it to their car insurance if you can. They're much more apt to keep paying on that instead of, oh gosh, if I have to cut something, I can cut this. They actually have to unravel it. It can be as inexpensive as 2 Starbucks a month. And when you put it that way, it's a pretty hard thing to not have people go, oh yeah, I could eliminate 2 Starbucks. And then the educational part is just huge. Telling them what's in their policy and letting them know that, when to file a claim, what do you capture and when. So now we're going to go into the big world of homeowners insurance. So for any of you that are homeowners, this is what I put together here is really what I wish I had known pre-disaster. I was like everybody else in the world who got a mortgage, had to have insurance, got the policy, put it in a drawer. Every few years, farmers would say, let's do a farmers friendly review. And whatever they told me, I said okay to, because I did not understand the different buckets of money. We now have to educate people about 4 different kinds of insurance. We have the admitted, licensed. We have the non-admitted, surplus or excess. We have the California Fair Plan or the CEA, which is for earthquakes. And we have the lender-placed policies. So the admitted policies is what we really want people to look at first and foremost. They pay into a insolvency fund where if they were to go bankrupt, you'd get up to $500,000. They're regulated by the California Department of Insurance. And these are the ones that everybody's heard about: Farmers, Travelers, Safeco, the Hartford. And then we have the non-admitted. They do not put money into the insolvency fund. If they go bankrupt, you have to get in line, and they're not regulated by the California Department of Insurance. A lot of people have fallen into this category with the struggles of insurance. So Lloyd's of London, Bamboo. What I really have to impress upon you is that Bamboo has admitted and non-admitted. So you're going to want to make sure which policy you have so you know what kind of oversight you have. California Fair Plan, people like to say it's very unfair. It is expensive. It is the last resort in insurance, and it is only fire insurance. So people really need to have to recognize that that is only going to cover fire. You're going to add a difference in condition policy from a admitted carrier, which will cover water, theft, and liability. And then in the California Fair Plan, you have your house covered. The other components, the loss of use or ALE, the personal contents have to be added. Its component is very basic, and it's some of it's good right now with people not being able to afford the pricing, so that maybe they can just get the house covered, or the components that they think are most important. But it becomes more and more expensive with the more that you add to it. So this is, we have the lender-placed policies, and many people don't know what those are. What that means is that when you have a mortgage and you have not shown your mortgage proof of insurance, they'll send you a letter that says, due to the fact that you did not show us proof of insurance, we have placed insurance on your mortgage. A lot of people breathe a big sigh of relief at that point, and they shouldn't. Then there's a bunch of legal jargon, and then it says, we highly recommend that you find insurance for yourself. You'll probably be able to capture more and pay less. That we found in LA, a lot of people, some knew, some did not know. It only covers the mortgage. So you're out of pocket. You do not have loss of use. You do not have personal property. all your equity that's built up in that home is gone, and you're left with a piece of land. So that's a big component now of our education. So this is a mock insurance policy. It's obviously very low. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. So your dwelling coverage is 300,000 in this. And if you look below under the basic policy premium, you will see the blue arrow that says limited home replacement cost endorsement 150%. It's really important that you have replacement costs. Most insurance policies now have that as opposed to actual cash value. So you take that 300,000 and your 150%, which is really just the 300,000 and 50% more. That makes 450,000 for this policy. You divide it out by your square footage, and that's what you would have to rebuild. Right now in LA, and every community will be different. We are seeing the minimum probably at 450 a square foot. Your other structures or anything that's not attached to your house, it's your fences, it's your decks, it's your sheds, it's your detached garage. So if there's a really low number in there, it's not covering your garage. Your personal property, really basic, right? Take your house, turn it upside down, shake it. Everything that comes out is your personal property. The challenge there is and will always be capturing that after a loss. So documenting what you had is huge in this. This is going to be the most painful thing if you're unfortunate and have to do this. This is the most painful part of recovery. This is also the dollars that many people put into their dwelling and only replace some of their personal property because really they don't want it all. Again, we have lots of stuff that we just store, but it becomes a huge component in adding to your dwelling. Your loss of use pays for you to be out of your home. So it doesn't pay your mortgage. It pays for, I like to tell people to factor in an inflated rent. It'll pay for mileage difference between, just like the renters, between where you're located now and how far you have to go to your daily life. It can cover if you have solar on your house and you go and rent a place and they don't have solar and your PG&E's $200 more a month. Mine covered, I have a little dog. I moved into a place that didn't have fences. They paid for an electronic fence. Every insurance company is different beyond those first few things that I told you. And the biggest thing is if you incur something because you're out of your home, you need to make that ask. The caveat to loss of use is that in a non-declared disaster, it's good for up to 24 months. In a declared disaster, that gets increased to up to 36 months. So whatever's in that bucket, you need to divide it by 36 and see if you would be able to cover those added expenses for being out of your home. Because quite frankly, paying your mortgage and paying to be in another location can kill a survivor financially. And that's a huge challenge. On the very bottom, it says building code upgrade limit. It's the second blue arrow. If your home is older, that's going to be a bigger gap. My home was a 1970s, 1,500 square feet, not huge. It was $68,000 in 2018. Now it would be closer to 100,000 because electric car hookup and solar is required. Very infrequently do they not enforce the codes. Sometimes they'll exclude solar if, paradise with all the tree coverings. But then that means that you don't get to use this bucket of money for it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. this just kind of, this talks about your personal liability that they cover. But the big thing is the combination, right? Combining to reduce your cost. If you can put your cars on there, if you can do your umbrella policy on there, generally you'll get a decent discount. Replacement cost versus actual cash value. We did discuss that, but I think this graphic is really good because basically people don't understand it until they get there. So you have a couch that's 10 years old and they depreciate it to $200. If you have actual cash value, that's all you get after they depreciate it. If you have replacement cost, you get to, after they depreciate it, you go out and buy another couch. They pay the like in kind. They pay the difference. So now you've paid $1,500 for that couch, and now they owe you $1,300. So that's the very basic of actual cash value compared to replacement value. There's always endorsements and exclusions, and extended replacement costs is one of the endorsements. Building code upgrades or ordinance or law are on there also. Water, sewer backup, and flood. That's a very small thing price-wise to add, and everybody should have it, quite frankly, but you have to ask for it. So you wanna know what your endorsements are. Are you paying to extra for, you have extra jewelry that's going to exceed the exclusion limit? If you have things that you collect that have a higher dollar value, artwork that's higher dollar value, you're going to want to see if there's exclusions in your policy that say, we're not covering this, and you're going to want to add an endorsement. So your personal property, we've gone over, but basically it should cover you wherever you are. So if you're in a hotel room and you get robbed, it should cover you there because it's your personal property. If your car gets broken into, it should cover also. The details will be in your policy, but what it won't cover is if you have if you're storing stuff for somebody else, including your adult children, which is problematic, it may not cover that. So you don't want to say it's your adult children's stuff. So this is just the basic limits. Money, a lot of the times they have a limit of $250. Comic books, trading cards, furs, which most people don't have anymore, thank God. Tools. These are the kind of things that you are going to want to make sure you have endorsements on if you exceed these limits. So how do you manage this in this day and age where insurance is getting more and more expensive? That is a challenge. You don't want to be underinsured. As I said earlier, 2/3 of people are underinsured at the time of a disaster. And in LA, we're finding that gap is averaging about 200,000. So some are grossly underinsured at maybe 400,000, and others might be at 50,000 or 100,000. But having enough, this is your biggest asset. And so you definitely want to secure it as much as you can. I mean, for me, it's my future, it's my retirement, all of those things that you have tried to put into place so you can control your finances in the future. I don't unilaterally say just put a higher deductible on it. You need to ask for quotes. This is all computerized now. You are the shopper. And it's really important to make sure that as you raise the deductibles, that you get credit on that. So if there's not a huge difference between a $5,000 and a $10,000 deductible, go with the $5,000. If it gives you a nice break to have the $10,000, go with the $10,000. Again, same with your your auto insurance, your umbrella. If you bundle them, they should give you a discount, but ask them how much they're giving you. Don't just give them your business, because insurance companies are really good at trying to capture everything that they can with their clients. And you might get a little better rate down the line if you don't just say, sure. My deductible is at $10,000 now. And I can tell you that there's a very good reason that I have it at that, because I know that one small claim will get me non-renewed. And I will pay more than $10,000 on the California Fair Plan. So kind of know what your challenges are and what you can absorb. This is extremely important, and this is whether you're talking to your agent just about your insurance policy, or you're talking to an adjuster after you file the claim. Please follow up with an email recap. Name who you're talking to, the date, which will be captured in the email when it was sent. And these were the questions I asked, my questions, and this is what I heard you say. In the Marshall Fire in Colorado, we had 3 people who actually talked to their State Farm agent and said, and captured it this way, saying, do I have enough insurance? And they said, absolutely, you are perfectly fine. The majority of the people in the Marshall Fire had about a third of what they needed insurance-wise. So they would have policies of $325,000 or $350,000, and it was costing a minimum of $900,000 to get their houses back. If you have that documentation, the Department of Insurance will go to bat for you, and they should make you whole. If you have a claim, adjusters will come and go, and it's just really important that you capture it so you're not fighting for something over and over again. But also, if you start spending money to repair or replace something, and then you get a new adjuster who says, yeah, we don't do that. That documentation is huge. So when something does happen, if something does happen, your first request is a complete certified copy of your current insurance policy. And in the big picture of things, you want them to print it out for you. They will send it to you in an email. And for survivors of any sort to work off of that, if your printer's gone, it's impossible. So you want 2 copies. You want one to put notes on, and you want one to keep clean so that it's just right there for you to, if you've written over something, it's your clean resource. Find out what your loss of use benefits are and use them. Now, most people don't know this, but there's 2 things you should do when you're talking to your adjuster. Is you should always say, I am awaiting your response. I would like a response. Please respond to this. The Department of Insurance, I was on a webinar where they mentioned that, and I'm like, why do you have to ask? If there's rules, why do you have to ask? But they do say you have to. And they're also, your adjuster is also required to tell you everything that's in your policy and how you can capture it, but you have to ask for that. Start a claim diary and save all your receipts. Best practices, take a picture of all your receipts, because you'll put them in your car and they'll fade out in just a couple days if you put them in the sun. Document everything. Pictures tell a great story. And, in the big picture of things, I'm hoping that you guys don't need this portion of this. Some tips that I've come up with since my fire. Take pictures of your prescription bottles, because you're not necessarily going to be home when there's an evacuation notice. And you can take that to most pharmacies and they'll give you a 3-day refill. Write down 5 phone numbers, one being out of the area. Put them in your glove compartment. We don't memorize phone numbers anymore. And so you can find someone with a phone. In my fire, I got out It was 2:20 in the morning and I got out in 2.5 minutes. My neighbor got out in 4 minutes and the back bumper of her car was melted. And the reason I'm telling you this is because it makes it very real. What will you take? How long do you have to find stuff? I am continuously calling my boyfriend's phone so that he can find his phone. So just recognize that that's not going to be your number one priority necessarily. Put all your local alerts on your phone. Watch duty is the number one in the US. LA used it in their Office of Emergency Services during their fire. That's how good it is. Evacuate when you're told. They do this systematically where they take the people closest and they evacuate them first and then the next, and they figure out how many cars will be coming out. And you don't want to be the person who leaves late and makes it difficult for others to get out. And take one car. Leave the car behind that you have full coverage on. That one's insured. You don't want to be separated during a fire, during a disaster of any sort. You may not be able to have phone service where you can connect, know where each other is, know if you're safe. And if you're older or if you have challenges, if you have pets that you need to get out earlier. Having cash is going to be king. Thankfully, we don't live on an island like Maui, but they lost all their internet and they did not have cash. They couldn't use their credit cards or their debit cards. I'm much more practical than that. I see the big picture. We probably would only have to, drive an hour or so away, but you're going to need enough money for gas, food at the minimum. Know what you're taking. Your brain goes sideways once you get that evacuation notice. So figure it out now. The night of the fire, I got dressed, I took my purse, I took my little dog, I took her leash, and I took some money that I have in a drawer. And the only thing different that I would do now is I have a photo album that's been recreated for me that's next to the door. And I have a guy. And if he's being exceptionally good, I'll take him too. If you're worried about having clothes to wear, seriously, take your dirty clothes basket. Those are the clothes that you always wear. Those are the ones you're going to miss. Again, bevelmade.com, I think it's a great app for capturing what's in your home. And it can be used if you were to have a robbery, if you were to have, flooding, any of those things, you would have documentation, and it's a lot more fun than writing down what you have. And if you have a lockbox, everybody should have a lockbox on their house. It's about $25 on Amazon. Anybody can get into your house at that point. It's on my irrigation in my backyard. It's not front and center, but even if it is, that's okay too. It's a lot easier to call your neighbor and ask them to get your dog out or help your kids get out, or a senior person or something that you want from that house, instead of saying, I'm pretty sure I put it under the tree to the left of the front window. Yeah, there's some rocks there. Most of us have trusts or wills, but if you have a trust, what we found out in LA is that your trust has to be named on your insurance policy if your home is in that trust. So please make sure you do that so you don't have another challenge if you do have a loss. And that's it for today. And I hope I didn't go too long.
Thank you so much, Annie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any questions in the chat. I just want to put it out there if somebody has a question. Okay. Yvonne, tell us about the banking side of things.
Perfect. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And let me know that you can see my presentation. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for having us be participating in this presentation today. I'm really excited to share some information with you on behalf of Patelco. Oops, I don't know how that happened. Let me go back. Hold on one sec. So I just want to introduce myself as the financial wellness partner here at Patelco. I see some familiar faces, so I'm excited to see all of you again. I always look forward to connecting with you and sharing all that Patelco has to offer. So today is very important. As Elizabeth said, we don't typically do presentations like this, so I felt like this information is so valuable, not only for you all and your clients, but for me as well, because it's information that I didn't know of. And so I'm really just excited to jump into it and share what we have to offer. When it comes to, are we prepared? It really is something that impacts us, and we don't always know how much, right? Save time, money, and stress when disaster strikes by making financial preparations. Today, I want to talk about, some of the topics being emergency documents. We have a checklist that we want to give you as far as what documents you might want to secure. And then also what types of resources and products and services are available during a disaster that we might offer here at Patelco, as well as how do you access your money? Where can you go in this time of an emergency? How much access do you have? Can you access your money for free? These are things that we want to share with you so that you can share that with your clients. So how disasters can affect finances. As you can see here, this quote, 66% of Americans say that being affected by a natural disaster would have a major or moderate impact on their financial situation. The cost of meeting immediate needs rises, the cost of repairing or replacing items, ongoing costs of items that you need, if you need to pay for food, housing, some of those sort of things that Annie mentioned. Another thing is unfortunately, you can also become a victim of identity theft and scams. And so it's really important to make sure that you are proactive in checking out your credit reports and things of that sort to make sure that you aren't being scammed. Unfortunately, during these challenging times, there are those scammers out there that do abuse the situation. So we want to be here to support that. Also, ways that you can be impacted would be access to your financial resources. If you don't have documents, securely prepared, ready to go, you might not be able to take advantage of financial resources right away because you'll be needing to provide proof of income, or you'll be needing to provide identification. And if you don't have that readily available, it can sometimes take away from the time that you need it, right? You need it right away. And then also penalties of missing payments. So if for any reason you do not contact your financial institution right away, you can be subject to more penalties when it comes to loan products and things, maybe investments, secured deposits and things like that. These are all products that could possibly be subject to penalties if you don't communicate with your financial institution. So here, keeping up your financial documents and information in a safe place is crucial. So as we know, some of us keep hard copies and some of us do keep it electronic. Either way, just making sure you have access to it is very important. When it comes to hard copy records, keeping it at home in a waterproof bag or a fire-resistant box is usually the safest place. And then some people prefer to have it in their go bag, or some might call a bug out bag. This is the bag that you intend to take with you in that, immediate response or that immediate time. So making sure that you have it readily available. Some people can even laminate some of these documents so that they have it safely in their to-go bag. But that's just one option. And then there's also options of keeping it in a safe deposit box at a financial institution. Here at Patelco, we do not have safe deposit boxes, but other financial institutions do offer it. You can also scan and email your documents securely to yourself. We recommend that you find a secure offsite data service. So that could be similar to like a Google Drive, an iCloud, or OneDrive. These are all options for you to secure it with a protected password to make sure that you are the only one that has access to that information. And here are some examples as far as the documents that you might be wanting to secure. And so I'll just go through them briefly here. So essential personal information, your driver's license, state ID, passports, social security cards, birth certificates, marriage certificate, divorce decree, immigration, naturalization papers, green card, visa, etc. When it comes to family, I think Annie mentioned this already, but wills, trust, your power of attorney documents, any military records, emergency contacts is important and huge. Like Annie mentioned, I don't remember anyone's phone number. And so it's really important to create a list and write it down so that you have communication with your emergency contacts. Beneficiary information. If you have people listed on your account as a beneficiary, it's important to be able to communicate with them because they may be closer to having access to your account than you are at the time of need, and they can help you in that moment. Pay stubs or proof of income, tax returns, those are all information that's needed should you need to apply for a loan or need to access other types of products and services. When it comes to financial and banking, we don't all also know all of our account numbers, right? And we want to keep them in a safe place, but having them available is important. So whether you keep it electronically or a hard copy, knowing your bank account numbers and routing information is good. Also, loan documents. Should you have a mortgage, an auto, or a student loan, or any type of personal loan, having those documents to confirm your account information is very helpful. Retirement, investment account information as well. And then also when it comes to property and housing, so mortgage documents or any lease agreements, property deeds, homeowner and renter insurance, as well as vehicle titles, registration, auto insurance, and then any recent utility bills. That's to prove your residence. You want to make sure that you have just a most recent copy, if possible, printed so that you can use that for proof of residence. Any questions on documentation? No? Okay, I'll continue. Okay, I'm just going to read this little insert here. So, immediate financial relief. An emergency or disastrous event may include, but not limited to, a major wildfire, earthquake, flood, tornado, hurricane, or pandemic. Not all natural disasters or events will result in the organization enacting the disaster relief offers. If a member claims they have been adversely impacted by an incident that Patelco has not recognized as a disastrous event, we will review the situation and work with the appropriate departments to see how we can support the members' financial well-being. While we primarily focus on natural events that occur in California, natural disasters across the globe are also investigated as Patelco members reside throughout the US and overseas. Relief offers are generally enacted if over 500 members reside in the impacted area. All events are analyzed on a case-by-case basis, and relief offers may be enacted for a lesser impact. There is no governing law that states that the credit union may or must provide emergency relief offers and or services to our members in the event of a natural disaster or event. These offers are solely in place to ensure that the financial health and well-being of our members, of our existing members. So with that said, I'd like to share some of the examples here of the types of loans that we would enact if in case of a disaster or an emergency. Prior to pandemic, there was fires in California that we did put together some types of programs to really help a specific demographic or a specific area. And so we wanted to make sure that with that, people understand it's not always just going to be limited to that area. We understand that people sometimes are still impacted and they move away. We want everyone to know that if you're an existing member, all disaster relief loans and services will be available to you. We also offer immediate 500 personal loans, $500 at 0% interest up to 1 year. This is an example. And then possibly a waiver of early withdrawal fees on share certificates. So if you have a certificate of deposit, we will waive the penalties that you might incur for accessing that money ahead of time. And then also reimbursement of any ATM fees or non-network locations. So if for any reason you have to go out of network, in some cases, we may reimburse some of those fees, as well as reversal of non-sufficient funds or late fees. So if for any reason you incur a non-sufficient fund fee during this period of time, we will go ahead and reverse those fees. We do offer low interest loans up to 5 years. For loans up to $10,000. The interest rate is dependent upon market conditions at the time of the event. And so it really depends on the specific event, what type of disaster, and how our board sees and fits the loan products for that time. Members who are current on existing consumer loans and or credit cards can request payment extensions. So an example of that would be 1 month, maybe skip a payment. You can request that through our online banking or in our branch, as well as if you needed an extended period of time, sometimes they can offer deferrals up to 90 days. As well as, these requests, they don't count against, the maximum allowable deferral amount. And so we want people to make sure that this is specific to the disaster event itself. It doesn't count towards your allowable deference allowance.
Yvonne, we have a question.
Oh, great.
Would this be a good time to break?
Perfect.
Vanessa, go ahead.
So for the low interest loans, is there like a credit requirement? Or does Patelco take into account that this is like an emergency type and they kind of override the credit score being a factor?
So yes, and in some cases, the credit score can be a factor. It does depend on the specific event and where it's located. If there is a program enacted, because sometimes we'll work with individuals on a case-by-case basis in determining how we can assist them based on the type of disaster, I guess, if that makes sense. But we will sometimes offer immediate $500 personal loans at 0 interest, and that sometimes doesn't apply to people with bad credit. Like anyone could apply. And so with that, I think it just depends on the type of disaster and the program that they put in place. Because if it's a larger disaster, a lot of times they will try and find multiple ways to really allow people to take advantage of most of the products that we're offering.
And I have another question.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
What about if is it only for areas that like Patelco is in? Because Patelco branches themselves are kind of just like general Bay Area, but what happens if you have members outside of the general area where Patelco branches are?
Yes. So like we mentioned in the previous slide, this is specific to mostly California. However, we do extend all of these relief loans to anyone that is an existing Patelco member. So if they happen to move outside of the area, but they still own a home in the affected area, then they would qualify for any of these programs, right? We want to make sure that they are existing members, that we're handling them on a case-by-case basis, and that we're working with them to understand what their needs are. So we will sit down with them, and I'm going to explain this more in the next couple slides here, but we'll sit down with them. One of our certified financial specialists will go over a plan to kind of help them decide what options might be best for them when it comes to either deferment or possibly refinancing, things like that. It really is on a case by case. However, they all will be eligible for these programs should they want to take advantage of them. And then where was I? I think the last one that I was going to mention was Patelco is proactive in sending announcements to its members in the impacted areas to inform them of financial aid relief. So if their address is located within a certain radius of the impacted area, we will send out a proactive email letting them know of all the programs that we're offering, all the services that we're offering, any aid that is needed within our program. We'll let them know, and so that way they can be informed. We also will be working with Elizabeth and United Way Bay Area to provide a template. We want to make sure that there's a letter that we can have you guys give to your clients as a way to request financial assistance. So it'll just maybe be posted on the disaster resource page for your clients to use, and you can share that with them. Okay, as far as accessibility, Patelco pretty much created our virtual branch during the pandemic time. And so it was a way for clients to meet with someone face-to-face, since during that time you didn't have the opportunity to really walk into a branch and encounter face-to-face interaction. So our virtual branch is thriving. It's, now its own channel of communication, and really you can do all things that you would do in a branch through our virtual branch experience. We also have certified financial specialists within our virtual branch locations to be able to work with any individual that's in need or has questions. We want to make sure that you understand how to use it. There's a QR code here, but you can also go to our Patelco's page, /locations, and you can schedule an appointment based off of if you'd like to go in person or if you'd like to set it up virtually. There is a button there that says meet now. And so you can meet someone face-to-face right away. You don't have to wait in line, which I think a lot of the times in these scenarios, it's an emergency situation. You need to reach someone and be in contact right away. You have that option to meet now, or you can also schedule an appointment if you need to as well. We also participate in the Co-op Shared Branching Network, and so that allows all of our members to access other branch locations as well as ATMs for free nationwide. It's credit unions that join together to offer you a Co-op Shared Branching Network. And so through that network, you have access to free ATMs such as 7-Eleven stores, as well as Costco ATMs are free. And so we want to make sure that people are fully understanding that they have access to their funds for free. And that's nationwide. There's about 30,000 ATMs and 6,000 shared branching locations. So it's a wide network. Along with that, if for any reason they need immediate access to cash, they can go into a grocery store and transact what's called a point of sale transaction, where they purchase something and ask for cash back. That's also a way to access your funds for free as well. So with that said, this, I believe, completes all of the information that I have to share today. But again, if you have any questions, my email is here, ivonneortega@patelco.org. Feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to share. I believe we're going to share these slides with you guys as well. And so if you have any questions, let me know. But other than that, I'll hand it back over to Elizabeth.
And if I could
Thank you
for just one moment.
Sure.
I can tell you that after my fire, that the financial institutes that were most supportive, offered the most oversight, were the local ones. We don't really give plugs to things, but the bottom line is really that they care about the community that you live in. So I think it's important to just be able to capture that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for saying that. And Yvonne, thank you so much for presenting and for sharing all that information. Are there any questions on the banking side before I proceed to the next piece? All right. So let me share my screen. And I apologize, but it's going to run captions on the bottom. I'm not sure how to get rid of that. So I apologize for that. But my presentation is going to be a little bit different than what we've talked about so far, in that I want to talk about it in a sense of an overview, so that you can see how this information all fits together and what kind of resources there are out there to help you do this yourself. A lot of times in these workshops, you get a lot of information, but organizing it when you need to prepare for yourself may not be the easiest thing because you're getting pieces in all sorts of different places. So that's what I'm going to focus on in my presentation. And let me get here. So, as financial coaches, I know there's many of you in the room, we know how little people save and how little they save for emergencies. And one of the things that was just researched recently came up and said 59% of Americans don't have enough savings to cover $1,000 of emergency expense. So if they can't even cover $1,000 of emergency expense, there's no way they can start to cover the cash limitations that are going to and the needs that are going to be put on your savings account if there's actually a disaster. So one of the things that we focus on when we talk about planning is how to get over that. And to help people feel more comfortable, to help them feel confident, even though things are kind of falling apart where they are, the pre-planning really helps them to do that. And that it doesn't matter whether people make very little money or whether they make a lot of money, to be able to have some cushion of safety if something were to happen makes the biggest difference. So we've talked about in this workshop and in other workshops about all these different things we can do to get ready. And this is now. This is what we can do now. So we've talked about emergency savings. One of the things that was mentioned was to set up banking, but to set up a separate account for savings that you know are dedicated for this. It's like your own insurance program. And to keep cash in a safe place. If you don't already do that, make sure that it's cash that's also like in your go bag, or ways that you will access it as you go out the door. We heard wonderful things about insurance from Annie, and I'm going to reiterate that you know all sorts of things about the type and coverage that you have. And Annie did a great job of covering property, but you need to also make sure that your health insurance, that you understand what you can and can't do if you're out of zone, if you're not with your own doctor, because that will also impact the cost of the care that you will have when a disaster strikes. Yvonne, wonderful list of all the documentation. I don't even need to say anything else, except for one thing. Notify your bank, yes, notify your employer. You may or may not be in the same area where your employer is, and they may not realize that you're in that kind of a situation. So as soon as you can, definitely not your first call, but let them know what's going on with you and that you are going to probably not be able to access or be working. So that's another thing to do. We have tons of coaches on the line, and I highly recommend that whether you're working with a coach or not, to work with a coach to help you and keep you accountable for doing all this preparation, and for helping you find resources after a disaster. So all of these things fit into an emergency plan. And you can choose to do as little or as much as you want in that plan. Sometimes it's just a great exercise so that you think through everything. Maybe what you actually bring with you in the go bag is not so much, but having thought through it, you'll feel more comfortable about the fact that you've made a choice about what to bring. So let's talk about what happens during and after an emergency. The emergency savings, the things that people recommend is use your savings for essentials. Don't use them for big things. Don't make emergency purchases, but prioritize it for things that are going to keep you healthy and safe. Food, gas, lodging, prioritize it. Because as you know, you're not going to have a huge amount of cash. And even when you do get access to your own savings accounts, if they're not big enough to handle everything that you're going to have costs for, start to prioritize that. Yvonne did a great job of talking about contacting lenders, extensions. But the biggest thing that I found is avoid making snap decisions. You're going to be in a really difficult emotional place. And sometimes, not sometimes, many of us have been, let's say, well-trained to shop.
My approval is
To shop to reduce stress. It's like, oh, I can get this from Amazon because I really need it. Anything like that, avoid making snap decisions because you're in a stressful place and you're going to want to feel more comfortable. and you have a very limited resource of money. Even if you do access your insurance and your insurance company is the best on the planet, it'll still take time for you to get that actual cash. And you'll have to find a way to access that cash, especially if it comes to you as a check. So part of that is just understanding that that's the headspace that you're going to be in. Documentation is fabulous. Make sure you have access to it. And I'm going to reiterate what was said before. Scams are going to be all over the place, and they're going to try to take advantage of that kind of emergency mindset that you're in, that emotional kind of shock that you're going to be going through. There are lots of resource options that we know of already. As we heard in our workshop program about from 211, 211 pivots in an emergency, and you'll be able to talk to people all over the country because the local 211s will be overwhelmed. But you'll have 211 coverage regardless of where you go. And one of the things we found out about in that workshop was also 988. If you really need to talk to somebody because you're too stressed out, because things are getting really hard to handle, because the emergency is impacting you and your family, 988 is a great place to call and just be able to bounce ideas off of people and to see what you can do to help yourself get through some of that stress. So emergency plans are there to be implemented, but the most important thing is to keep safe and to keep healthy. So whatever you can do to help you do that is going to be helpful overall as you try to work with this. So where do I get these emergency plans? How do I access them? Usually emergency plans have a lot of the information that Ivani said about what you need to have from your household, what you need to have from financial and legal sources, what you need to do to protect yourself or have documentation on for your medical places. Some of these plans are huge and some of them are checklists. So pick what you want. What I've done is looked at sources that are available now online for some of these materials. Some of them are available in different languages. So for those of you who either have households who speak a different language or you're working with clients who speak a different language, these are printed materials in all the languages here. At Ready, they have the most comprehensive printed emergency plan, and that's the emergency financial first aid kit. And it comes in all of the languages that are shown. They also help with how to get tech ready for it. And they also talk about financial preparedness for specialty populations like older adults or caregivers, pets, kids, businesses. And they very lightly review safety skills after a disaster. The downside is most of the resource links that they attach you to are to English websites. So that is not as good on the language side, but it is available for the other materials as well. So Ready is a great place to go. Of course, this is a government-funded website, so until issues are more resolved on the government side, it won't be updated. But I found that the materials there are very current and very applicable to what we need. So it's a good source. The other source that is good for you and your clients is the American Red Cross. Now, American Red Cross covers lots of different aspects of a disaster. So I focused on the financial ones. And they did a presentation probably right around COVID time that is probably the most comprehensive guidebook I've seen on getting financially prepared. So if you want to become like an expert on this, they have a really comprehensive guidebook and some checklists that you can work with. All of it is in English, but they have checklists for all different aspects, like separate little pieces of disaster preparedness, from insurance, health, life, personal connections, all of that. And on here, I've put a kind of a table of contents of all the different topics that they cover in this financial planning guide. Another one is FEMA, which also same thing. Government is not, because of the situation now, it won't be updated, but it actually has excellent information on it now. it covers even more languages. The work that it focuses on, though, is how to work with FEMA once an area has been designated as a disaster zone by the US government. So actually, technically by the president. So there are lots of fact sheets on there, how to interact with FEMA, what to do, what documentations you need, what kind of policy guides or program guides there are, like where the restrictions are, who can access the funds and who can't. And there's an entire library of FEMA forms and guides that you can access. So again, tons of languages, even more than the earlier ones. And I think most of the fact sheets and some of the libraries are in those languages, but the resource library for individual assistance, the actual guidebook, that is only in English. So that unfortunately is not as easily accessible. The last one I want to talk about is USA Gov, because they talk about all these kind of little pieces that you might want to interact with after a disaster happens, like how to get DSNAP for food, for disaster food relief. It talks a little bit about bills like utilities, and how you can get support from the utility companies. And it also covers home repair loans, which is way after the disaster, but is a big component of how you're going to get back to a more normal place in your life. If you own property and it has had some damage. There's also, if you have your own business, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, does have disaster loans that are accessible. Also, if it's designated as an area that has experienced a disaster. And it has links to disaster unemployment assistance, but technically it's California unemployment. So there's nothing special about that. It's the regular employment process. I couldn't find something that was specific to a disaster, so you just have to go through the regular unemployment process to access those funds. So the last slide I want to show you is all of the SparkPoint centers that are out there. If people do want to work with a financial coach, there's probably one in your area. And please reach out to us if you want to know who to contact or what to contact. And there's also a wonderful website that shows you maps of where all the centers are located so that you can find the one that's closest to you. All right. I want to stop here and see if anybody has any questions. I went through that a little bit fast, but I'm hoping that was helpful. And I didn't look for questions, so let me check. Oh, thank you, Annie. Yes, FEMA's average award is $5,000. Is that correct? Is that the right number of zeros? Oh boy. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, Annie, do you also have a question?
I just wanted to share that, after a disaster, your number one source of resources will be at either the Disaster Resource Center or the Local Assistance Center, depending on whether it's a FEMA declared or not. And people will be able to go there. It's kind of a one-stop shop where the DMV sets up, the Social Security sets, financial resources, gift cards, unemployment, FEMA, SBA. And so that's a great place for most people to start. Not knowing what's there is a huge thing. I've worked really hard since my fire on educating people that are at the door to explain exactly what is there for them to access. I think I went 4 times after my disaster because I had no clue what all those names on those tables meant.
Thank you, Annie. So I want to open it up if anybody has any questions of any of our presenters. I want to tell you what's going to happen after this workshop so that you know. Following the workshop, you're going to get an email that has links to this presentations and also an opportunity to enter the great giveaway, which is part of the whole project that Verizon is doing. It's an amazing giveaway. It's like on a table at United Way Bay Area. It's just like overflowing. But you'll have a chance to apply for that. And then you'll also have an opportunity to have access to the United Way Bay Area Disaster Preparedness Guide. That'll be part of the email that you have. There is one workshop that's left in the series, and that's the one for Red Cross readiness, and also a great overview of the local recovery partners, people in your area that are great sources of assistance after a disaster, but also to help you prepare for the disaster. So that's our last one in this series, and that will be on October 28th in the morning from 10 to 11:30. All right. Annie, Yvonne, any last words?
I think that what people need to know is that once you have a disaster, whatever that looks like, your brain does not function properly. So having the preparedness pieces, knowing where all your documents are, knowing that everything's secure is a big weight off your shoulders, because you've just created all these new jobs for yourself by having a disaster. So you don't need that on top of it. And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Likewise, thank you for having me as well. And I agree. I think that knowing who your resources are ahead of time really kind of saves a lot of pain and heartache. But with us having those certified financial specialists available, ready to sit down with you, it's a free service. So, you can ask any question to help you in this scenario. So I really highly suggest taking advantage of working with them. They will help you understand your financial picture and how we can, help you in that specific time.
I also want to say that if you're not lucky enough to be banking with Patelco,
Oh, you don't have to be a
need
member either.
Okay.
Okay.
That the best thing to do is connect with your bank before a disaster happens to understand their process.
Yeah.
They should have literature on it, just like the one that you saw today from Ivane, and that way you'll know where it is that you need to access your own bank's information and what they offer during a disaster for you in this area. The last thing you want to do is to be in a phone line with the other $100,000 people who are trying to access that information once a disaster strikes. So do yourself a favor and find out, just like you do on the insurance side, what it is that you have access to and how.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope this has been helpful. And it's been a wonder working with both of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.